Everybody, Kathleen here. We are doing the elementary education webinar. We are live on Facebook, YouTube, in the webinar itself. We have over like 1,500 people signed up for this webinar. So if you are here, let me know in the chat that you can hear me and see me okay. According to my stuff, you can hear me and see me, but go ahead in the chat and let me know that you are here and that you can see me. Again, my name is Kathleen Jasper. I'm so excited to be here with you today. We are doing the Praxis Elementary Education 5001 exam, which is all things elementary education. So even if you're not taking that particular elementary test, and you might be like, oh, I'm taking my test in Ohio, or I'm taking my test in Texas, this is going to help you. All right, Jennifer, Cheryl, and Tiffany, sounds like you guys can hear me. Thank you so much. Welcome. Thank you for signing up for this webinar and spending your Saturday with me. I am sure you are exhausted from getting back to school. If you are teaching and spending your Saturday with me is a sacrifice. So I so appreciate that. Again, we are going through the 5001 elementary education. This is our number one program. We know this test very, very well, and we have helped thousands and thousands of teachers pass this exam. Okay. So we're going to do a couple of things today. I'm going to go over test structure. I'm also going to go over specific questions, and I'm going to help you think like a test maker. That's my phrase, think like a test maker, so that you can find patterns and identify ways in which you can be strategic so that you can pass your exam. One thing I want to make sure that you know is that I am qualified to give you this instruction. Some of you know me, and let me know in the chat if you're new or if you've done other videos with me or webinars with me. If you're new, my name's Kathleen Jasper. I started off as a substitute teacher, much like many of you did or are doing. I got a permanent position as a biology teacher for a teacher who was retiring in the middle of the year. So I started spring semester, like right now, back in 2006, I think it was, maybe 2007. And I loved it. It was really challenging, and I decided to stick with it. My mother was an educator. She was a principal, a director. She went all the way, 32 years in education. And I got certified in several things, because in high school, you can get certified in lots of different things like biology, reading, so they can move you, you can be marketable. So I got certified in biology and reading and English. English is my background. I have an English degree from Florida State, but I taught English, reading, and because I had substitute taught in the biology class, my principal put me in biology. So that was my worst subject in school, but I ended up really loving teaching it. And my kids did really well on their state assessments. So sometimes you don't have to be a total expert to be a good educator. Believe me. Then I got a job downtown working in curriculum. So for those of you who are new to teaching, or maybe you're in your third or fourth year or something, and you're like, God, I don't know. Do I want to stay in the classroom? There are jobs downtown at the downtown office in curriculum and instruction that are really fun. I wrote curriculum. I did professional development. I built assessments. Much of the work I do today has been informed by that job. It was the coolest job ever. I highly recommend that you seek, if you're sick of the classroom, seek other positions outside of that. Then I went and got my doctorate in educational leadership, and I became an assistant principal in high school, only to leave 3 years later and start my own company, which I'm obsessed with, which I love. And I'm here with you today, taking all those skills I got from starting off as a substitute teacher, not certified, to where I am today, which is having advanced degrees in ed leadership and helping people pass their teacher certification exams and be teachers and assistant principals. We also have leadership programs. So that's who I am. I'm so glad that you're here with us. And remember, you're not alone. Everybody in the chat is going through this too. And it's hard. Teaching certification is really hard. Okay. So this is your first webinar. Awesome. New. Tabitha's new. Mackenzie's new. Marlo's new. Well, welcome all new people, and welcome to those of you who have been here before. So here's a couple things that I just want to go through before we get started. If you are in the webinar, like if you're in the chat with me on Vimeo, you signed up through our website, you got a link, and you got the stuff that goes with this. When we are done with this webinar, you are going to get an email with everything I talk about today. So you'll get this replay so you can play it again and fast forward and whatever you want to do. You will also get any resources I talk about. I'll often talk about a website or like a video of mine sometimes in the middle of it, and we will link all of that up. So you don't have to try to fumble and find your stuff. You're going to get an email that has all of that. The other thing is you're going to get a 20% off code for anything that we offer. And my colleague is in the chat. She'll be here in just a second. It usually takes like a couple minutes for her to get connected. Her name is Yana, and she will give you a code in the chat. So don't buy anything until you get the code. It's 20% off. So it's a pretty good chunk off. If you're watching me on Facebook or YouTube, there's a link in the description to sign up, which will get you on the list to get the email sent to you. And if you're watching this in the future on YouTube, the link is in the description and you'll get everything. It's just, you're getting the replay, not the live portion. Okay. Awesome. We have so many new people. I'm so glad. Patsy, Bianca, Ayana, Alicia, we've got lots of people. Lena, lots of people new. Awesome. Okay. So we're going to get started. Now, when you signed up, you got a free study guide. It's pretty extensive. Let me show it to you really quickly. So you can have a look at it here. So you can see that this is that's the paid study guide. This is the free study guide. There is a button here that'll take you to my website to buy the paid, but go through the free first. I have everything broken up here, and I am going to go through this with you today, so don't worry. There's a lot of information under the language arts section because I want to make sure you understand everything, but you can see that the real book is over 500 pages. So just know that this free study guide is amazing. And a lot of people use just our free stuff. I'm going to be pulling pieces from this study guide because this free one would take me about 3 hours to go through, and we don't want to do that, right? So this is 24 pages, pretty extensive free study guide. I highly recommend. The other thing I recommend is when you do it, look at these answer explanations. There's a lot of really good information in the answer explanations. Sometimes it helps to know why you got something right, but more importantly, why you got something wrong. So even if you got it right, I recommend having a look at these. And I go through all 4 sections, and we're going to talk more about that. Now, if you want more, we have a much more extensive version that is, as you can see, 520 pages. This is our full study guide. This is the digital version. When you buy it on our website, you're getting the digital copy emailed to you. And you can see like we have after every section, so we have reading, foundational skills. You can see here's the foundational skills. And then after each section, and let me just scroll. This is much more in depth. We have 10 practice problems after every single section to show you what those problems look like. You know, you want to know what's the phonemic awareness, what's the phonics, in science, what's physical science. So we section those off. So there's tons of questions here. And let me just go up here so you understand how many practice tests there are. There are 2 practice tests for each huge subtest. So 2 practice tests for English language arts, 2 practice tests for mathematics, 2 for social studies, and 2 for science. This is the brand new version. There are many more practice test questions than the first edition. But if you already bought the first edition, you're good. You don't have to get the new book. A lot of people love the old book too, but this one's better in my opinion. So, okay. So that's the paid version. And then of course we have an online course, which I'm going to share here. Let me just share one more thing. I think it's window. Yeah, no, there we go. We have an online course that's much more intense. It comes with the study guide. So you download the digital study guide for each section, but then we have videos for every single, skill. And it's very in depth. We have the quizzes put in, which are the 10 practice test questions, but they're online here. And then I have an explanation video as to why something's right and why something's wrong. The math is super in depth. If you're struggling with math, let's just make this go really quickly. Hang on. There we go. Again, study guide, you download the study guide. And then we have like so many videos on understanding, everything here. And then of course I have videos for, all the practice tests, because with math, I feel like you need me to work every single one out. So this is a huge course. We have it on our website. And if you're interested in stuff and you're going to get the 20% off coupon, go to KathleenJasper.com, online course 5001. This gives you everything. And you can also buy extra practice tests if you want. But I always say you need to know the information. If you just want the study guide, you can get it. Where are you? Elementary ed. We have so many elementary eds. 5001. And if you want a physical copy, go to Amazon, click that tab, and that will take you here. And this book has almost 1,000 reviews, most of them 5-star. People love this program. One thing about the book on Amazon, please buy the new. You're saving a couple bucks with the used, but like it's going to have writing in it. And people will email me and say, hey, my book had writing in it. And it's like, well, you bought a used copy. You know what I mean? Like if you don't want it to have writing in it, you got to buy the new copy. Okay. If you don't mind the writing, buy the used, but just saying. Okay. All right. So that is it. I just wanted to let you know where you could get our paid resources. Yana just entered the chat and she will give you guys a 20% off coupon. You can see it there. Next to her name, it says host. If you're watching on Facebook or YouTube, click the link. You'll get everything. And don't worry about that now. And don't even worry about downloading your free study guide. I'm about to project everything. So you can just follow along as we go. Okay. All right. So, and I'll go over these resources again. Now, listen, if you are someone who is like financially struggling, use my free stuff. You just have to piece it together a little bit. Go to YouTube, go to the reading, go to the math, go to the social studies, use this free study guide, Google, you can piece together your own program too. It's a little more complicated, but if you want to save money and you don't want to buy, I'm not here to like force you, but our products are awesome and they are definitely worth it. So the 20% off coupon, somebody's asking, how long is it good for? It's good for whenever. Just use it. It'll be fine. So we usually we might change every 6 months or something, the codes, but a lot of people use it later, like if you get paid next week or something like that. But again, if you're trying to save money, I have a free YouTube channel that has tons of good videos for you. So that'll help you as well. All right. So let's get into the 5001. Big test, huge test. Just make sure. Okay. Just want to make sure. And I want to see where I am. Hold on, please. Please hold. I have to make sure on my phone that everything is good. It helps me to see what's going on. Okay, there we go. Let's share this and we're going here. Okay, so we are talking about the Praxis Elementary Education 5001, all 4 subjects here. And that is going to be the language arts and reading. Oh, let me get my pencil working here. There we go. I need to do blue. I used to do my presentations. I used to use purple and blue or purple and red and green. But then I realized some people are red, green, colorblind. And it's like, oh my gosh. So now I just use blue on everything. Hopefully that meets the needs of most people. But the 5002. So the whole test is called the 5001. That's the code, right? The 5002 is the reading and language arts. And you can see this is the biggest part of the exam. Well, why? Because everybody's a reading and language arts teacher. That's what we want you to be, especially in elementary ed. So whether you're teaching social studies, science, you're a reading and language arts teacher. You have 80 minutes for this. That is the 5002. This is all things foundational skills of reading all the way up to comprehension and writing. We're going to talk about it. The 5003 is the math portion. The math is not easy. I love to see people online go, oh, you can't pass an elementary ed test. I've seen people in the comments say stuff like that. I would like to give this math test to those people. There is slope on this. There are complex algebra questions on this. Like it's hard. And I will also say that when I was younger, we didn't do algebra in 5th grade. It's gotten harder over the years. Kids are expected to do a lot more difficult work. And therefore, the teachers are also, and parents. I don't know if you're a parent and you've gotten some of your kids' math homework and you're like, wait a second, what's going on here? So that's 65 questions. So a little bit smaller than the reading and language arts, but also a big chunk of the test. 5002 and 5003, the reading and math, are the biggest parts and arguably the most complicated, in my opinion. Now, the 5004 is social studies, and this is all just content. There are no teaching scenarios really on this part. In the reading, you're going to have some teaching scenarios, and on the math, you're going to have some teaching scenarios. And what I mean by that is you're going to have like what should the teacher do next? Or a student is struggling with blah, blah, blah. How should the teacher help the student? That's how it's going to work for those two. Math is still just doing the math, but you might get a couple of scenario questions. With social studies and science, the 5004 and the 5005, they're straight up content. So like you need to know US history, colonization, the Louisiana Purchase, the oh gosh, the War of 1812. I mean, things you may not have thought about in 20 years. Okay. So we got to brush up on some of those concepts. And the science, the same thing, physical science, life science, and physical life and earth space. You might not have thought of like all the different types of stars there are, right? In a long time, probably since you were in elementary school. So these are very content based, all content, just recall. So you definitely want to look the stuff up in my book. I cover everything that's covered in the specs, but I will say for some of these, especially social science, you'll get some random questions. People say, oh, this, and I don't recommend, do not share questions from the exam. It's not allowed. So don't go online and say, oh, I got this question. Like, don't do that. But I have heard through the grapevine, a couple questions here and there. And I'm like, wow, that's random. That's really not in the test specs if the person is telling me, what's happening there. So you will get a random, you're not going to get 100%. In fact, you only need about a 60% to pass these exams. So stop thinking you need 100%. You do not. All right, let's talk about the 5002. This is divided into two sections, reading and then writing, speaking, and listening. Now, it looks as if the writing, speaking, and listening is bigger, and it is, but it's got 3 sections in it. This part is actually heavy because it's all about foundational skills of reading and comprehension and vocab and stuff like that. So you really need to understand those foundational skills, and we're going to go over them today. And then, of course, we have writing, speaking, and listening all lumped into one. So let's have a look at foundational skills. So we're talking 5002 right now, and this is all about teaching students how to read. Now, we have phonological and phonemic awareness. I want you to think about phonological and phonemic awareness as sounds only in words. If it goes with sounds, these are the 2 skills. So phonological awareness are bigger sounds in words. So breaking the word up by, let's just say, onset and rhyme. I'm going to do a quick one right now. Tur-ack. Okay. Tur is the onset. Ack is the rhyme. Now, I'm writing this out for you because we're on a presentation and you already know how to read. And I'm trying to explain what these are. When you do these activities with students, you do them just by listening and talking. You do not have to see the word. You're not looking at letters. So what we would say for this, we would be like, all right, everybody say the word track, and they say track. And I might say, break up the word track by its onset and rhyme. And the kids would go, tur-ack. Now, I've obviously told students what an onset is and what a rhyme is. A lot of kids know that. And so they'll go tur-ack, right? Or I might say the word track, and they say track. And I say, take off the ack. And they go tur. We're breaking up words by big chunks of sounds in there. But if we're talking about phonemic awareness, it's a little more complicated. We're breaking up the words by individual sounds. T, ah, k. The CK makes one sound, right? So t, ah, k, 4 sounds. Breaking it up by onset and rhyme, it's just 2, tur-ack. So again, we can do this in the dark. You do not need to see the word to do this. It's all about the sounds only in words. When you are answering questions like this, think about the sounds only in words. Phonics, however, is different. Phonics is all about letter sound correspondence. You have to see the word in order to do phonics, okay? So that's the difference. If you see the terms letter sound correspondence, if you see the term phoneme grapheme correspondence, grapheme means writing, we're talking phonics. So for example, when I see the word make, according to my phonics skills, the A is long because it's followed by a consonant and a silent E, right? So this is a CVC, silent E word. I have to look at the word in order to know that that's a long A and a silent E. You don't get that just from listening. That is phonics. That's the difference. Phonological and phonemic awareness comes first. Phonics comes next. Then we move into fluency. So we've got our phonics. We understand how to decode words. Now we put all those words together and we read phrases and we read sentences and we read passages. And we do that through automaticity or automatic reading, accuracy, prosody, and making sure that we're reading at a rate that is conducive to like understanding the text. So fluency is about reading with accuracy, automaticity, and prosody. We're going to go through some questions on that. And then once you have all that, you get to comprehension. Comprehension is the essence of reading. This is where we want students to be. This is where the critical thinking is. This is where the analyzing text is. This is where the prediction is and summarization is. But they can't get here until they've gotten all of this. And remember this, we want to teach these skills explicitly and systematically, meaning we model these skills, we teach them in isolation. We don't skip phonological and phonemic awareness and do a little phonics and go right into comprehension. Okay. You know, the way I learned, and it turns out, according to science, it's not the best way. We went a lot to this first. I was taught, you know, I'm Gen X in the 80s, so it's a little different. But, you know, we did a lot more reading, which is great. But, you know, when you skip these foundational skills, according to the research, you're not set up for success as well. So we want to explicitly teach these foundational skills, these code-based skills, before we get into meaning-based skills with comprehension. And you're going to want to think about metacognition. Metacognition is a good word. And you know, if you've seen my study guides, that I have a good words list at the back of my my study guides to tell you what the good words are and what to look for. And I have, you know, all these little tips to tell you, hey, this is a good word. Slow down if you see it in an answer choice. Metacognition is thinking about your thinking. We teach students how to use their brains. Okay, so for example, if we're reading aloud and I say, that's a difficult word. I wonder what I can do to figure out that word. Can I read around the word? Can I use some clues? I'm doing that aloud. I'm modeling that. Model is another good word to show students how to access, you know, tools in their brains. They don't know how to do that until we show them how to do that. All right, so let's see what it looks like on the exam with one of these questions. This one is number 3 on your study guide. No need to flip around if you don't have it available. You can go back and do it. This is on page 8 in case you're looking. So we have, I always like to work backwards. Now, in this case, working backwards isn't going to help me much because all I have are skills here. I have phonemic awareness, decoding, phonics, and structural analysis. Now, if I'm thinking like a test maker and I know these skills very well, I know decoding and phonics are the same thing. And if I can only choose one answer choice, it's not going to be most likely B or C because decoding is phonics. When I look at make, and I know this is a long A and this is a silent E, that's decoding the word and it is phonics. So think like a test maker, be strategic. I know to eliminate them right away. You might just be cognizant of it like, decoding and phonics is the same thing. Okay, I'm not so sure about that. You don't have to necessarily eliminate it if that makes you nervous, but if you don't have boxes next to it like this, that means you're only choosing one answer. If you have boxes, it'll say choose all that apply or choose 2. But in this case, we don't have any boxes. So it means I just one answer choice and decoding and phonics are the same thing. I can't choose 2, so I'm going to cross them off. I'm going to continue to work backwards. I'm going to read these bullets. Teach students to break down words by individual sounds. Teach students to focus on sounds as they rhyme words. Sounds. Doesn't say anything about writing. This is phonemic awareness. And it's not structural analysis because a structural analysis is like when we have a word like unreal and we break the prefix off and we kind of analyze the structure of the word. That's not happening here. Okay. So I didn't even have to get bogged down with this. And a lot of times you'll have a big old scenario and it's just giving you a bunch of information you don't need. Start backwards. Right away, I was able to sort of be skeptical of B and C which breaks it down to 50-50 chance. Then I read the bullets. Then I go back, then I would read this. I wouldn't skip anything. But based on the following instructional practices, what type of lesson? I mean, it's just setting you up to look at the bullets, okay? All right, so that's an example of foundational skills. Now let's talk about literature and informational text. So a big part of the teaching reading portion of the exam. And if you're taking the 7001, this is a little different than the teaching reading, but they cover the same things. We're talking about informational versus literary. A balanced literacy approach means we're using both. Informational is things like textbooks, articles, things like that. Literary is poetry, stories, fables. We need both. They need both. And we even want to compare. You might have an informational piece about, a current event. You might find a fable that corresponds with it. Like that's what really good reading teachers do, finding those connections. And that increases critical thinking. We want to analyze text structures. Is it an expository text? Is it an argumentative text? Those types of things. Text features, especially for informational. Are there headings? Are there graphs? Teaching students how to navigate this. Again, comparing multiple texts. I talked about that a little bit. Comparing a poem to maybe a piece of informational text. We always want to help students connect text to self. That's why it's important to have all different types of literature in your library that represent all different types of students, because we want students to see themselves in literature so that they want to read. If they do not see themselves, they're not going to want to read. So, it's just like you like to read what you like to read, right? You don't want to read boring stuff. Neither do your students. So make sure you can connect that text to self. And then we always want to help students use evidence from text, evidence-based discussion to support their claims. So you might be talking about a story and the student might say, well, I think the character did this because of this, right? And you might say, that's a really good observation. What in the text brought you to that conclusion? Always upping the rigor and the questioning level to help students. And think about this for your classroom. This isn't just for the test. If you're becoming a reading teacher, these are things that you really want to do. Okay, so we've got a nice big long scenario here. So this one is good for reading backwards. This is number 7 in the language arts portion of your free study guide. All right, here we go. A, allow students to partner up and read the text with a buddy. Okay, I like partner reading. Sometimes it's the right answer, but it's not the best answer in the entire world. And, partnering up is good to help students get motivated, but it's not going to help struggling students. We'll see. We're going to leave it. B, reward the students with extra time in the computer lab for finishing reading. Okay, this is called an extrinsic reward. Rewarding them with homework passes, extra time on the playground, a candy. Does it work? Yes, it totally works. I used extrinsic rewards all the time. But the thing is, extrinsic rewards tend to wear off and they're not sustainable. So the kids get sick of the same candy over and over again. The kid says, I don't want to go out on the playground, so those rewards end up wearing off. These are typically not the correct answers. Pizza parties for reading, things like that, they tend to leave some kids out. Reading is touchy. You got a lot of kids who struggle with reading. It's just a hard skill. And when we start rewarding certain kids and not others, and I know people say, oh, you shouldn't give a participation trophy. Yeah, I agree. For sports, like if you lose a race, you shouldn't get a trophy, right? But if you're working on your reading, that's different. Education is different than sports. Okay. I am very competitive when it comes to running and sports. Winners win, losers lose. That's how it goes. Reading, however, we have all different students, especially at this age, that have a range of ability. And you start knocking them down at an early age and say, oh, you don't get a participation trophy. They're never going to want to read. So be leery of rewards and data walls and things that tend to penalize students for having trouble with reading. Just my opinion. C, require the students to finish reading for homework. Homework, bad word, taking it off. D, allow students to self-select books from a standards-aligned group of informational texts. D's got it all. A is okay because a buddy is fun, but A has got self-select, which is text to self, and it has standards aligned. You see standards aligned in an answer choice, it's the answer. Let's have a look at the question just to make sure. I will continue to go backwards and read the STEM. What can the teacher do to motivate students to engage in the reading? Now, if you're a brand new teacher, you might say, well, A really motivates my students. They love partner reading, right? But you got to think like a test maker. Who makes this test? Your state. The state wants to know that you are going to do what? Teach to the standards. You see standards alignment, it's the answer 100% of the time. That's why A is disqualified. It says, what can the teacher do to motivate students to engage in the reading? It might say, what's the most effective thing the teacher can do? And that will lead you to D. All right. All right. Now we're at the writing, speaking, and listening portion. Again, this is after we're done with the foundational skills, phonemic, phonological awareness, phonics fluency. And then we're into, comprehension and writing. They go hand to hand. Reading comprehension and writing go hand to hand. And you're going to talk about the writing process with students. This is not just, how they write, but peer reviews, editing, proofing, pre-writing, all of that is in the writing process. We want to think about audience awareness. We want to help students determine, okay, who are you writing to? If you're writing to your grandmother, you're going to write a narrative, right? But if you're writing to a school board member, you might write an expository or perhaps a persuasive piece. We want to show students why we would write a certain way, right? We do want to focus on grammar and mechanics. It's not the main focus, but they need grammar and mechanics. And it's a part of the writing. We want students to be more keen on like how they're organizing. Organizing is a big one in supporting the thesis, but we certainly want to make sure students understand grammatical situations in their writing. And then of course, we want to help students present, want to help them speak to the class, but also listening. Listening is a skill. And we want to make sure we teach students how to do that. So what does that look like on an answer choice? Okay, so this is one of those big ones. And here's what people tend to do. They start here. They read this whole thing, then they read this, then they read this, and then they go, wait, what did I read? Okay, let me go back up here and read this again. Don't do that. Start with the answer choices, all right? So A, you use the term American alligator a lot. Try combining sentences to give the paragraph varied language. Okay, this looks to me like it's feedback, and I can see right here what's the appropriate feedback. So this is a teacher talking to a student, right? I like this feedback because it's specific and meaningful, and it has the word varied language, which is a good set of words on this part of the test. But the one thing this piece of feedback is missing is a positive, right? You want to praise more than you kick, especially with writing, because writing is hard. So for example, if you get a student who gives you a piece of writing and you mark it all up with red marks, it's overwhelming. The kid doesn't know what to fix, right? You go with some positives and you just pepper in some things, one or two things the kid can work on. In this case, I like the feedback, but we need a little bit of positive. So I'm going to keep it, but see if there's anything better. B, good job. Keep up the great work. No, that's not feedback. That's lazy. It's okay to say good, but I would say, hey, that's really good because you used X, Y, and Z. You can even do this as you're teaching. A student might answer a question. You can say, wow, that's a really good answer. I can tell you read your homework last night. Just following up like a little sentence beyond good job helps to give it specific and meaningful cred. So make sure you do that. C, consider using a closing statement at the end. No, that's just feedback without any kind of, specificity. I mean, it's sort of specific, but it's not great. D, your writing does a great job describing your knowledge about the American alligator. Consider deleting sentence 4 so it doesn't take away from your overall theme. Now, I would probably choose that one, but I might want to check to make sure 4 does in fact take away from its overall theme, because if it doesn't, then A would be the right answer, right? So now I could go up and read, okay, the American alligator is a reptile. The American alligator is an apex predator. An apex predator is a predator at the top of the food chain. Other apex predators are lions and tigers. And then he goes back to the American alligator. So deleting 4 would be a good feedback. So D is definitely the best answer there. All right. Now I'm going to go back over to my chat here and just see what people are saying. Is this similar to the GACE? Yes. Can we print out the study guide after you've marked it up? Not really. It's on my presentation. So can't really print this out because it's on my keynote. I think of phonological and phonemic awareness as you were talking on the phone and yes, Jen, I had it taught to me that phonemic and phonological awareness can be done in the dark. You don't have to see the word, but I love that you're talking on the phone. That's great. I teach pre-K. Would it be good to write so they can see it? No. Well, you're going to write. They're going to see the letters on the board. You have the letters above the board. It's not like you're not allowing them to see it. It's just that it focuses on sounds only. That's the thing. Okay. Looks like your book helped me pass 502 and I'm about to take the fort, then move on to other subjects. Oh, Latoya, I'm about to publish a Foundations of Reading test book in about a week. So I don't know when you are taking the fort, but the 5002, if you were successful on that, you should be successful on the fort, but the fort has a writing portion. For those of you wondering, what's the fort? It's another reading test. They all test the same stuff, but the Foundations of Reading test has a writing portion. You do not. For this test, there's no writing. It's just straight up multiple choice. But just to talk to you a little bit, Latoya, fort coming soon. I think the end of next week. Hopefully it's an edit. So if you can wait for that, that'll be good. But if you passed this, you're good. But I would really work on the writing, the open response. All right. Looks like you guys are good. Let's hop over to the math. Some of you are seeking a lot of math. Ashley, I took the practice part of 501. Can't seem to get past 64%. Okay, Ashley. So here's the thing. I like people to be at about 75% before they take the exam. I feel like 75 is like safe because you don't need a 75. You need much lower than that to pass, but I just like people to be in the safe zone. You know what I mean? So if you're blocked, something is going on where you think you know a concept that you don't know. You think you're answering something correctly. So here are some strategies really quickly. And Janice, you're talking about test anxiety, and this will help you as well. Read the answer explanations very in depth to understand why you got something wrong. Also, look in the, let me just show you. Okay. On my practice test, there's a column. Do you see it? It says category, and it's like 1, 2, 3, 4. You want to know what category it's in, because that will help you understand it more. So really check out the category, really look at everything, and please read everything in the study guide. You have to have the skills down. Practice tests are great, but just doing them over and over again is not going to help. Okay. Victoria, what's the difference between the 5001 and the 7811? Okay. The 7811 is a little different than the 5001 in that the social studies and science has more scenario-based questions. You still have to know the content. I have a 7811 book, and the code will work for that if you want to just buy the 7811 book. The 7812, which is the language arts and reading, is almost identical to the 5002. And the math is very close, but the math has a lot more scenarios. So if you're talking, Victoria, if you're talking the language arts portion, it's very much the same. But I have a program for the 7811. So you can find that study guide on my website, and you can use the code you're getting for this webinar on it too. Okay, what is the college level test that you take called? What is the college level test? You might be thinking of the basic skills exam, the Praxis core, where it's reading, math, and writing. I'm doing a webinar on that next week. The 5001 is not a basic skills test. This is for elementary education teachers. This is called a subject area exam. So real quick, most of you will have to take 3 tests. It's the Praxis core, or a test like it if you're in a different state. It's a basic skills test. It's like an SAT. You have reading, writing, and math. Okay. Then you take your subject area. If you want to be an elementary ed teacher, most teachers take this or a test very much like it. And then usually there is a test that's for the profession of education, which has like laws in it and just stuff that teachers need to know, ethics, things like that. Most states require all 3. Some have eliminated the Praxis core, and they will go based on your undergraduate GPA, but many people still have to take all 3. But this is a subject area. It's not the Praxis core. I'm doing Praxis core next week, and you can sign up for it on our website. Mary, Praxis core in South Carolina is what I need to take. Okay, come see me next week, next Saturday, same time, same place. Okay. William, PPST is the basics. Yeah, that's one for another state. Every state has their own test, but they all kind of cover the same thing. So, all right. And someone's saying Praxis 2. Okay. It used to be called, the Praxis core used to be called the Praxis 1, because if you were going into an education program, you would have to take the core to get into the College of Education. So they called it the Praxis 1. And then once you're in the College of Education, you take the Praxis 2, which would be the elementary ed, or let's say you want to be a middle school science teacher, you would take the middle school science or math or whatever. That's the subject area. And they used to call that the Praxis 2. But now they don't do that. All right. I have to take this and 5622 along with the 5205. It's so lame that they make you take the 5205 with this because the 5002 is the 5205. But anyways, are you sure you're taking the 5001 and not the 5901? It might be the 5901, Letitia. Some people have to take the 5901, which is the same as this, but without the language arts, and you have to take a separate language arts test. But either way, I got you covered. Let's move on to math. All right, let me share screen here. Okay, here we go. So the math portion, these are the sections, numbers and operations, okay? This is really kind of everything. This is everything from like ratios, PEMDAS, place value, grouping. I mean, it goes from very basic up to very complex. So there are going to be 20 questions on this. That's 40% of the test. And remember, certain things about number and operations might be embedded in the algebra section. I mean, you need numbers and operations also for algebra. Then we get into algebraic thinking at 15 questions, 30%, and then geometry, measurement data, probability, and stats. That's going to be 15%. All right. So let's have a look at what numbers and operations are. And listen, every math test is structured this way. Every math test has numbers and operation, algebraic thinking, and then this. Now, more advanced math tests for like middle school, they usually break up these two sections into more distinct sections, but every math test tests the same stuff. All right, so numbers and operation, place value, PEMDAS, order of operations, exponents, fractions, decimals, percents, and proportions. Now, if you're not strong in math, you're really going to have to study this section. It's a tough one. It's not easy, but I want you to be careful. And this goes along with the test anxiety that somebody was asking about. Try not to have negative self-talk about math. I see a lot of people say, oh, I'm terrible at math. You're not terrible at math. You've just been more successful in other areas. I guarantee you, if you spend some time and you look at it in a way where from a strengths-based perspective, like I'm not good at math yet, or I haven't mastered math yet, you're going to do a lot better. No one is a math person. No one is an English person. It's just that early on, you were successful in English, maybe a little bit more than you were in math, or you were successful in math more than you were in writing. But if you work at these skills, you will be good at them. Our brain has neuroplasticity. You can learn these skills even later in life. Trust me. So you are a math person. Okay. Say it to yourself. I am a math person. All right. So let's do this question here. This is number 4 on page 12. Okay. Now I like this question because it's a proportion, or it's a ratio proportion question. So this has to do with, numbers and operations, and it's a word problem, which a lot of people have a hard time with. So we have Ryan works at a sandwich shop and can make 35 sandwiches in 50 minutes. At this rate, all right, this is going to indicate something that's going on here. At this rate, how many sandwiches can he make in a 4-hour shift? Okay. Couple things to know when you're about to use a proportion. First of all, it says rate. If you have a rate and you've got some things in here, what I would do automatically is set these up equal to one another. Now listen, there are shortcuts to this. And I know some of you very math savvy people will be like, why don't you just do this? I'm doing this not really a long way, but a more way in which I explain it, because some people need to see why. All right. But if you have a shortcut, you can do the shortcut. Every time I go on TikTok and do a question like this, there's always something like, all you need to do is this. And it's like, okay, well, you go make a TikTok and you do the question then. All right. So I like to do this matchy. Okay. Whatever you have on the top, you have to have it on both sides. And whatever you have on the bottom, you have to have it on both sides. So here's what we have. We have sandwiches over time equals sandwiches over time, right? Sandwiches over time equals sandwiches over time. I could also do time over sandwiches equals time over sandwiches, but I can't do sandwiches over time equals time over sandwiches. You got to keep it matchy. All right. So I'm going to make it easy on myself. I'm going to go 35 sandwiches over time in 50 minutes. At this rate, How many sandwiches? I don't know. I have to make that an X. Can he make in a 4-hour shift? Right? Well, we need to convert also. So this is complicated. We have 50 minutes here. We have 4 hours here. So what do we need to do? We need to multiply 4 times 60 and we get 240. Getting out my calculator for other problems. You do get a calculator on this exam for the 5003. Okay. So 4 times 60 equals 240. So I would do 240 here. Now, there's a couple ways you can do this. I like to cross multiply and solve for X, and I'm going to do it that way because it gives me a little algebra too. And I want to show you, not algebra 2, algebra also, because I want to show you something. But you could say, okay, how many times does 50 go into 240? So 240 divided by 50. Well, it's 4.8, and we could multiply 4.8 times 35 and we get 168. You could do that, but sometimes it doesn't work out evenly. And so what I like to do, my way, is cross multiply and solve. So what I do is I multiply 35 times 240. Now you can only do this when they're set equal to each other, and I get 8,400 equals 50x. Now I solve for x. And I like to do this because I want to show you the algebra. There's two things going on in this question. There's order of operations and there's also algebra. So it's assessing several things. Now I divide by 50 to isolate the x, divide by 50, 840 divided by 50, use your calculator just to make sure, and we get 168. Same as before. Now, if you're someone who, and let me just do this. Make this. If you're someone who likes a shortcut, I will show you a shortcut, okay? But if you're someone who struggles, you might want to just take the extra second, cross multiply and solve. Cross multiplying solving does the same thing as if I say, all right, let's divide 240 by 50. How many times does 50 go into 240? And we said, I can't remember. Let me just do it. Divided by 50. It's 4.8, okay? So 4.8. So if I multiply 35 by 4.8, I should get this X. And when I do, I get 168. I get the same. But you can do it both ways, okay? But I definitely recommend that you set up a proportion because it'll help you see it. And here's another thing about proportions. If you have 3 out of the 4 things like given to you, and you're looking for that 4th thing, that X, a proportion will help you. So for example, I have 35 sandwiches in 50 minutes, 2 things, and then I have this 3rd thing, the 4-hour shift. But I need that one last thing. I need the number of sandwiches. I need that one thing, that 4th thing. You can set up a proportion. It'll help you there. All right. Next, algebraic thinking. Expressions versus equations. What are expressions? What are equations? Just so you know, equations have equal signs. Expressions don't. Linear relationships, formulas for unknown quantities. This is like solving for X. Proportions, again, proportions are everywhere. And then, of course, verbal statements, putting them to algebra. I don't know why I have this greater than sign, which should be equals algebra. So when they say like a word problem, you have to turn it into a algebraic equation or expression. All right, so you might get something just like this where it's an actual, you just solve for it, okay? B equals -4. Okay, so anywhere we see a B, we want to put in a -4. Should have an equal sign here. All right, so careful. Whenever you're on the test and you're seeing a lot of negatives and stuff, they're trying to mess you up. All right. So this is not only algebra, this is also order of operations, which is also numbers and operations. So again, we got a problem that is assessing several things. So negative, and I'm going to put here -4 in parentheses, squared minus 3 times -4 equals. Be careful. Move that move that number down for the variable, but section it off so that you're not missing things. Now, we need to make sure we remember our PEMDAS. parentheses, exponent, multiplication and division, depending on which one comes first, and then adding and subtracting, depending on which one comes first. Now, we have parentheses here, but really when we talk about parentheses, we're talking about like an operation inside of a parentheses. In this case, the parentheses are just keeping our negative straight. So we can move on to exponents. There's nothing to solve inside these parentheses. It's already there. It's a -4. Now be careful. A lot of people might say, oh, distribute that negative. No, do not distribute that negative because you're going to get the wrong answer because you didn't follow the order of operations. What do we do first? We do -4 to the second power. So -4 times -4 is a +16. And I'm doing it the long way just to show you, but you got to be careful. Bring everything down. And now, since I don't have an exponent here, I can multiply -3 times -4 gives us a +12. Now I can move this negative. So I have -16 plus 12 equals -4b. Now, if I had done what my instinct is telling me, oh, there's a negative there, distribute it. Distribution is multiplication. Let me show you what would happen if we did that. That's why it's so important to follow your orders of operations. All right, here we go. I say, oh, yeah, let's just do this. Boom. Okay, 4 squared. And then boom, it's +12. Okay, 4 squared, 16 plus 12. Oh, that's 28. Boom, D. They will anticipate your incorrect answer and your error. That is not correct. Be sure that we are doing the orders of operations in the proper order. Okay, and that would be to do the exponent first. Moving this through is multiplication. That comes after exponent. All right, so B is the proper answer, and I have it in the answer explanations for you as well. Okay, this one tends to stress people out a little bit, but it's okay. We have geometry, measurement, and data. So it's going to be anything from identifying 1, 2, and 3-dimensional figures, triangles, squares, rhombus, kites, all the way to cones, cylinders, spheres, things like that. Perimeter, area, and volume and circumference. So, finding these measures on 2 and 3-dimensional shapes. And then units of measure. So cups versus pints, things like that. Some people, yeah, I'm not the best at that, I will say. My husband's a chef, so he is so good at those conversions. But, sometimes I really have to go, wait a minute. How many cups are in a pint? You got to take a second. So make sure you know those. I have a chart in the book for you. Central tendency, mean, median, and mode. Now, this is not addressed in the test specifications, but I added it to the book because I'm afraid that they may put it in there in I don't know. I just feel like central tendency, it has to be in there just in case. So it's not specifically mentioned in the test specifications, but I make sure it's in there. Graphs and charts, reading them, tables, things like that. And then probability. And of course, again, proportions. You might get a proportion for geometry. You might have similar triangles, right? And you got to use a proportion to figure them out. Happens a lot. So let's have a look at what you might see on this one. So what is the perimeter of a square with an area of 49 square inches? Okay, this one's relatively easy. You might have it embedded in a more difficult problem, but we have to know a few things. Notice this is assessing 2-dimensional figures and perimeter and area. So there's several things being assessed in one math problem here, a very simple math problem, okay? So be careful. It wants the perimeter. So if we have a square, we need to know that all sides are equal, right? And if the area is 49, that means x times x equals 49, right? X times x equals 49. Well, what times itself equals 49? 7 times 7, right? So this even assesses some of your basic mental math, some of your, what do they call it? Times tables, right? So we then know that, let me just delete. Oh, it's doing one at a time. Sorry. We know then that this is 7 and 7, right? But if we're looking for perimeter, we need to go 7, 7, 7, 7. So 7 times 4 or 7 plus 7 plus 7 plus 7 is 28 inches. D. All right, let's do another one. So these I see sometimes online and everything, different problems like this when it comes to probability for various tests, not just this one. I can see my answer choices are just regular numbers, can't do much there. Let's have a look at the question. Ellie's food truck currently serves 4 main dishes and 3 side dishes, and each meal consists of 1 main dish and 1 side. Okay, so you get one of each. You get a main and you get a side. Next week, she's adding 1 main dish and 2 sides to the menu. How many more combinations of meals will her customers be able to get with the new additions? All right. This can send people into panic mode, but this is super easy. Okay. Because you only get 1 main and 1 side, the possible combinations here are 4 times 3. There's 12 total possible combinations right now. All right. But she's adding a main and she's adding 2 sides. So this becomes 5 times 5. That equals 25. 25 combinations. So grab D and move on, right? No, there's one more step. Be careful. A lot of times we're stressed. Read the question stem one more time just to make sure. How many more combinations of meals will her customers be able to get? How many more means subtraction. 25 minus 12 is 13. B. Be careful. I see this all the time. When you're on with me, you're like, oh, I know that. But when you're under a stressful test situation and you're like, oh, I got it, 25, boom, move on. That's not the answer. Make sure you read that question stem. That's why I always say, work backwards, look at the whole item, because that's going to help you understand what you need to do. And they do that on purpose. There are little tricks. And notice, good math writers anticipate your math mistakes. And we do that too in our study guide. We want to make sure 25 is not the correct answer. It is 13. How many more? All right, let's move on to social studies. I want to get you guys out of here with a decent amount of time so you can at least have some of your Saturday. 5004 is going to be all about content. Now, if somebody was asking me about the 7811, so that would be the 7815, I think, on there, because they switched the science and the social studies. I know way too much about tests, you guys. It's going to be scenario based, like how you teach this stuff. But for you all who are taking the 5004, it's straight content. It's going to be about presidents and federal government versus state government, 3 branches of government. It's heavy on the U.S. history, 27%. 27 questions at 45%. Then geography. And let me tell you, there are some concepts on the geography you have not thought about, like an archipelago. Who has thought about that in 20 years? Not me. Well, I have, because I've written about it, but you know what I'm saying? So 18 questions, and it includes anthropology and sociology. So it's going to have some stuff about human race and things like that, and the human impact on the environment. That's 30%. And then econ and world history, 15 questions, 25%. The economics, there's some, it's going to talk about opportunity costs. It's going to talk about supply and demand. Embedded in that is going to be world history, ancient civilizations. You may not have thought about Mesopotamia in a long time, or Mesopotamia, not Mesopotamia, Mesopotamia. You want to make sure you brush up on all of that. All right, so let's have a look at what's going on with the U.S. history. So that first section is, you're going to have to know about European exploration. Who came? There were people here already. Make sure we understand the different tribes in different parts of the country. Which settlements went to who? The Dutch settled certain places, the English settled certain places, the French settled certain places. It's important to know that. Of course, the American Revolution, breaking away from the British. Lots of nuance there. Major events: Civil War, slavery. You need to know concepts of the transatlantic slave trade. Westward expansion, going west to conquer the lands out there, just colonization everywhere. Key documents: Declaration of Independence, Constitution, and this should say Federalist Papers. Sorry, it should not Feudalist Papers, should say Federalist Papers. I'll fix that. Branches of government, and then, of course, citizens' responsibilities. So what might that look like? All right, let's have a look at the answer choices. Implementation of the Indian removal process, reconstitution of the southern states. That sounds like Reconstruction. Exploration of the new territory and an initiation of the first U.S. Census. Okay, can't do anything with the answer choices. And for this one, it's going to be hard to use the answer choices first, but I like to just read them to kind of get a feel of what's going on. Following the Louisiana Purchase, Thomas Jefferson ordered which of the following tasks to be completed? All right. Well, once we bought that part of the United States, and they say, oh, it was the greatest negotiation because I think they bought it for, correct me if I'm wrong, it's 12 million or 15 million. I have it in the book. I can't remember if it's 12 or 15 million. And they say no blood was shed. Well, actually, there were a lot of people were displaced. It was the onset of the Trail of Tears. Like there were people living in that area already, but they tout the Louisiana Purchase as conquering land without having to go to war. And once the United States acquired it, they sent Lewis and Clark to explore the western part of the United States. So exploration of the new territory is correct. And I go through all of that in the book. But again, I mean, when have you thought about Lewis and Clark? Probably not for a long time. So we want to make sure we brush up on that. Geography, anthropology, and sociology. This is the next section. So we have world geography concepts, physical and human systems, cultures, and people migration and settlements. You might get something easy like this, which is just a longitude and latitude question. Using the map, which country is 60 degrees north and 120 east? You may not have brushed up on your longitudinal and latitude in a while. You might, it's been a while for people. It's okay. Some of these are not easy. Let's have a look. So we're at 60 north right here, 120 east. If we go up here, where are we? We are in Russia. So you kind of have to know your continents, and you also have to know how to use longitude and latitude. And you got to be careful you don't do it like this, 60, 120, because you could say, oh, Australia, if you don't know the right way to do it. So make sure you know the right way to do that. And that's all outlined in the book. And the last part of the 5004 is world history and econ. So we're going to talk about ancient civilizations, Mesopotamia, Egypt, Greece, Romans, the Byzantine Empire. I mean, it goes on and on. We've got charts for that. Developments of the 20th century. So it goes everything from ancient civilizations to the 20th century. There is no 21st century on there. I assume if they ever redo the test, which they do from time to time, which will be in the future, not when you take it, there's an announcement usually, and it's done within like 2 years, like it's far off. They might add the 21st, but there's only the 20th century. Cross-cultural comparisons, basic econ like supply and demand, scarcity, choice, and then populations, resources, and impact, because that has to do with economics. Here's one here. Which of the following civilizations was the first? Hang on, my pencil just went away. There we go. Was the first to use irrigation. This is Mesopotamia. They were the first to do it. Egypt perfected it, but Mesopotamia was the first one to do it. So it says the first here. And again, the cradle of civilization. This is such an interesting topic, Mesopotamia. Like if you have a chance to like watch a documentary on it or read something on it, I definitely cover it in the book, but I mean, it's elementary ed. I don't go into it, but I just wrote a new social studies book for the 5581. It's high school. And you get into this a little bit more. And it's so interesting, like ancient civilizations, like who we were in the past. It's crazy. So really interesting. And they were the first to use irrigation. All right, let's move on, and then I'll take some questions in a second. We're talking about science here. We have earth, space, life, and physical. Okay, earth space is all about the earth, sun, moon, stars, planets, also the earth's crust, the water cycle, earthquakes, volcanoes, all of that is earth space science. So it's a big part. And every single section is the same, 33%. Life science is biology, all things cells, humans, animals, ecosystems, anything about life. It goes from the DNA molecule all the way out to the ecosystems in life. This is my favorite. I taught this for my high school kids. I love life science. And then physical science is physics and chemistry, right? So physical science, energy, the periodic table, acid versus basic, potential energy, kinetic energy, simple machines, lightning, all of that is part of the physical science. So let's have a look. Earth space again, Earth, moon, Earth systems, Earth spheres, understanding atmosphere, troposphere, stratosphere, stuff like that, Earth's crust. And make sure if you get any scenario questions on this, you are pushing students towards inquiry. This supports the scientific method. Going, that's weird. Why does it do that? Asking questions, observing. Wow, why does that drop of water stay like that on the table? Why doesn't it all go everywhere? Why does it kind of go into a droplet? You know what? That might be the polarity of water based on what I read. Oh, let's do an experiment. That's all the scientific method. And we want to instill that in kids at a young age. So be on the lookout for anything with inquiry. All right. So here's one, water cycle. That's giving me a clue. I got all this rain and stuff. The picture is an example of hydrosphere. Now, you may say, oh, that's easy. Yes, this one's easy, but you may have simple questions like this where it's just like, oh, what is this? And you're like, I don't know what that is. I haven't seen that in 30 years. Brush up on your science, okay? Life science, cell theory, parts of a cell, human system, interdependence, life cycles, and again, inquiry. Let's have a look at that. So we have which of the following is a producer? Now I give it to you here because this came from the book, but on the exam, you might not have this picture here. You might just have which of the following is a producer. Well, the grass is 100% producer. Okay. Why? Because it produces energy. It takes energy from the sun. It's a very simplified version, and carbon dioxide in the air, and makes carbohydrates that then the bunny eats. And the bunny gets energy from it, ATP in the form of ATP. And through cellular respiration, it expels that energy. But before it expels all its energy and dies, the snake eats the bunny. It gets some of that ATP, right? And before the snake dies, the bird eats it and gets all the energy they can. And then the hawk eats this bird. Now, as we move up the energy pyramid, energy is reduced. All the energy is down here in the carbohydrates. As you move up, and you still get energy from proteins and fats, but most of the energy is down at the bottom. Grass is a 100% producer. The rest of them are, they eat the grass, and they eat the things that eat the grass. Okay. So again, you might be like, I haven't thought of that in a while. And physical science. We have physical and chemical changes, forces and motions, electricity, forms of energy, machines, and inquiry. Again, I've got 2 questions here for you that I want to talk about because I just think they're interesting. So which of the following is an accurate depiction of how lightning works? Okay, you might be like, I don't know how lightning works. That's okay. It's in the book. Answer choices here. When the ground becomes positively charged, the negatively charged electrons in the cloud move down the cloud toward the ground and lightning occurs. A is actually the correct answer, but I want to show you the way this is set up. Sometimes on exams, and this happens a lot on all different types, you'll have these long answer choices where there's just changes in certain parts. Notice this says positively charged, this says negatively charged, this says intermingled, this says intermingled, right? This says cloud, this says ground. They're switching up the answer choices. So if I know about lightning, and I know this from my study guide because I go over it, let's just show you what happens. When lightning occurs, you have positive and negative charges in both the cloud and the ground. But what happens is positive charges on the ground kind of rise to the top and negative charges sort of go down to the bottom. And then negative charges go down to the bottom of the cloud and the positive charges move to the top. And what happens? Positives and negatives attract, right? And when that attraction is high enough, you get the lightning, okay? Now, I know that because I read the study guide. So right away, if I see the ground becomes negatively charged, I don't have to read any further because that's definitely not the right answer because the ground becomes positively charged. See, particles in the cloud become intermingled? No, if they're intermingled, and they do become intermingled, but negative plus. If they're all messed up, you don't have a definitive like charge happening. So it's not going to do that positive and negative subtract. If this is all like boop, 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 boop. You're not having a single form of energy coming down. So intermingled is not happening. So intermingled and intermingled are both incorrect. So I like to think like a test maker on those because they'll switch them up. It's the same answer choice, just with different adjectives in different places. And you can immediately eliminate that way. And then finally, let's do one more about kinetic and potential energy. At what point on the graphic shown is the potential energy the highest? Potential. A. When the pendulum is at the very top, it has the most potential. And then it loses potential energy and gains kinetic energy. Kinetic energy and potential energy are inversely related. When one goes up, the other goes down. So right before it hits the bottom at C, kinetic energy is the highest. Then it's got kinetic energy. It's losing kinetic energy, gaining potential energy. Here in E, it's got more potential than kinetic, not as much potential in A. A, it's way up high. But E, now it's got potential, and then it moves this way, losing potential, gaining kinetic. Most kinetic energy right here, and then it starts to lose kinetic, gain potential, and then it might go to here. Now it's got all the potential energy it can get, and then it goes same. So A is the highest potential, C is the highest kinetic. Remember, kinetic and potential are inversely related. Okay, let me see what you guys got for me in the chat. Okay, the proctor just has to see you wipe it down. Okay, you guys are helping each other with your test stuff. Let's see here. Yeah, everything's sold separately. Yes, Paulina, the proctors. Okay, you guys are helping each other. Committing these to memory is a pain. Yes, it is. But that's why reading the book. So William said, committing these to memory is a pain. It is, but if you read the book and really get to understand it, you're not really committing it to memory, So I would encourage you to sort of see what's going on in the book. And then if you're interested in one of those concepts, like do a little Google. I also have videos for them as well. Okay. I mean, the online content has video. If you're talking about my online courses has a video to show you how all this works. Flashcards are a lifesaver. Yes, indeed. Hi, Kathleen. I got a 151 on my last Praxis 5005 test. I am retaking it. You need a 159. I bought your online course and got a 76 on the second practice test from your book I took. Do you have any other tips on how I can review to make sure I pass? Okay, Sam, here's the thing. You are probably 2 questions away from passing. A 151 to a 159 is not very much. It could even be 1 question. It just depends on what the scale score is. I would go back through and read up on all the concepts. I do have additional practice tests for sale. However, you can buy the extra practice test, but I want you to understand the concepts more. Everything in the book is covered. Everything on the specs is covered in the book. But again, you might get a random question. What I would do is try to remember some of the questions that you got that you were like, I don't know the answer to this, and dig down and Google those and see if you can get more in depth on them. That will help. You're very close. I wouldn't rely too much on the practice tests. You do need a score, like you got a 76. So that indicates you're ready. My tests are not going to match your test exactly. So I just did a video on this. The tests have item banks, and in the item banks are hundreds of test questions under a very secure process. So I write my test questions in a similar way based on their release documents. So I know based on what they release that this is how they structure certain test questions. So I use the structure and the content on their test specifications, but I have no idea what test you're going to get on test day. And I shouldn't know. It's a state standardized assessment. So you've got to make sure you really understand the concepts. Now, you may have read everything and done everything and still have come up short, and that happens. So I would I would check out the test specifications by Googling 5005 study companion. It'll pop up. There's all the topics there under the social studies, or you said science, you're working on the science. And you can go even more in depth on your own. I cover everything in the book, but like I said, you might get a random question. That's just how they do it. Okay, let's see. Somebody asked a question about taking the 5002 on January 5th. We'll look into the webinar in 7002 to be exempt from. Oh, yes, Tiffany. The 7002 is the teaching reading. So there are some programs in some states where if you take the 7002, you don't have to take an extra reading test, because the 7002 it's a brand new book. I have it. It's the green book. Okay, Ashley's asking, do you recommend taking the 5001 as a whole or taking them individually? I recommend the first time taking them all together. Why? Because you might pass one or two. You might not be a great test taker, but you might pass one or two, and then you only have to deal with two moving forward. Lots of people need to take the test multiple times. They don't pass everything in one shot. Or you could pass it all in one shot. Remember, you don't need 100. You need like a 63, 4, 5. You need a D. You need a high D. Do you have books for the 50017? I do not, Mackenzie. It's not given that often to a lot of states. But you can still use our 5001 or 7001 for that. Thank you. I should mention, last time I didn't use your online course, so I think I've grown a lot since the last go around. Okay, Sam, so you must have the online course, hopefully. That's great. I'm so glad. I got a 149 on the 5017. I need an additional practice. Okay, well, you could use our book, but it's not completely aligned to the 5017. Would you recommend taking each test separately? It just said, yeah. So then once you take it all at once, so take the 5001, you may get 1, 2, 3, 4, all sections, right? Let's say you don't pass the math and the science, okay? Then I would take just the math, work on that. Then I would take just the science, work on that. But I recommend trying it all at once. And listen, for those of you who have test anxiety, just go in as like a learning opportunity. Be like, this is my task right now. I've studied, but I want to get to know this exam. I want to see how rigorous it is, right? I'm not going to be attached to the outcome. I know it's expensive, and I don't want to like assume, oh, you just pay for it. It is expensive, but if you go into it like as a learning experience, it'll help you, look at it, look at the structure, see what's going on. And then when you get out, Google some of those concepts and you may pass. Any ideas on the 5205 and 5622? Hey, Ashley, I have such an extensive program for the 5205. That's the teaching reading, and the 5622. I'm doing a webinar on both. I'm doing a webinar on the 5205 at the end of this month. That's going to be coupled with the Foundations of Reading. And I have a whole program for the 5622. So on my website, I'm also doing PLT next month. So, okay, what is the pass score for the 5001 Virginia? So what you can do, Lena, if you're looking for your pass scores, all you have to do is, let me show you how to do that. If you're looking for how you do your scores, let me show you. Okay. Praxis, sorry. Praxis scores by state. Okay. So you see our state requirements, view score requirements, click it. All right. And we're going to go to type of test, or you go to your state, but instead what I like to do is go to view score requirements here. Okay. And then select the test, 5001. All right. I'm going to click that. So you can see here it's clicked, and then you can choose your state. I like to see all the different states, and I'll do that now because we got people in all different states. Hit compare. And you can see that we don't have a qualifying score. Why? Because they do it separately. All right. So here's what we need to do. I just wanted to do that so you guys could see. What we want to do is go 5002. Grab it. Compare. All right. So from Alaska is like 157, 141. You were asking for Virginia. It's a 157. It's on the higher end. Virginia's on the higher end. Some are low. Some are, most states are 157. Some, Arkansas is 141. Kentucky's 151, and that's minor. I mean, a 141 is pretty, that's much lower than a 157, but a 151 and a 157 is not that big of a deal. Not that big of a thing, right? All right, let's see 5003. Again, 157, 141, looks like they're about the same. Let's go to Virginia, 157. Oh, that says, sorry. We're still at the, nope. 5003. Sorry, I wanted to get rid of that. Let's get rid of that. There we go. So yeah, 157, Arkansas, 136, Virginia, 157. They pretty much stay the same. Let's see 5004. Okay. Get rid of the 5003. 5004. 137 for Arkansas, 155 for Virginia, a little bit lower. And let's go to 5005. Compare. 159, Alaska, all the way down. And Virginia is 159. So that's how you do it. Google Praxis scores by state. Oh, you guys didn't see me doing that, did you? Sorry. Share this tab instead. I'm so sorry. Let me try that again. So you go in here and you type your score. You type your thing. You wanted 5002. Sorry, you didn't see me sharing that. I accidentally did it. So you go in and you click 5002. Make sure that's the only one. And then you can select your state, Virginia. I'm putting them all here. And you hit compare, and you can see they're all here. Virginia is on the third page down here. It's a 157. And you do that for each one. Click off this, hit the X, and then do 5003. Click it, compare. You can also keep your state in here if you're looking for just your state. You may want to compare different states if you're trying to teach in different areas. Virginia, 157. So that's how you do it. So again, Google Praxis scores by state, and then type in your test. You can see here, somebody was asking about the 5205. Oop. You can check the 5205 teaching reading. Let's get rid of this one. You can see those scores are 159. Pretty much everybody's a 159 for that, right? The 7002, a new test some of you are taking. Sometimes new tests, you get a break because it's brand new. They drop the score. See how low that score is? If you have a chance to take it, the cut scores are low right now. Sometimes on a new test, they make the cut scores really low because they're still trying to figure it out. So sometimes a new test is a good thing. Just saying. Okay, let me stop sharing here. Go back to my questions. Kentucky doesn't have a score. Yeah, Ashley, I don't know why. They may on their website, so you have to look into that. Zoe, they're establishing a benchmark, but it's just require that we take it. That Zoe, yeah, Ashley, they're just requiring you take it. So that's why I say a new test, if they're adopting a new test, take it as quickly as possible because sometimes you just get in because you took it. Okay. All right. Let me show you where to get some more free resources. Thank you guys for being with me today. Again, let me go to my YouTube channel. This is where you're going to get a lot of information here. Let me refresh. Hopefully I'm live on YouTube. I am. Good. Okay. You can see I've got tons of videos. I have old webinars too. I also have test strategy, lots of stuff. God, look at my face there. I hate their thumbnails that they keep. They're like crazy. I have a huge teaching reading playlist. This will help you. If you're trying to save money and you don't necessarily want to buy an expensive online course, go to this teaching reading if you're having a hard time with the 5002, 5205, 7002, any reading test. I have lots of writing help. Those of you who are writing essays, things like that. Subject area sessions, please go to my YouTube channel and subscribe if you don't mind. Also, I really hope TikTok doesn't get banned because I've been doing a lot on TikTok. Let me just share this tab instead. I've been doing, oops, something went wrong. Let's see here. Okay. I've been doing a lot on ChatGPT, test specs. These are shorter videos. I love TikTok for teaching. It's so fun. I do live sessions where I do math for like an hour. I'm still trying to establish a schedule. I like do it when I can, but I go through test questions. I go through reading strategies, ACT, SAT. I do all kinds of stuff here. So I check out my TikTok and follow me if you can. I'm also on Facebook and Instagram, although, a lot of what I post here gets posted there as well. So if you're an Instagram person, go there. If you're a Facebook person, and of course we're live on Facebook right now, and we have tons of stuff on Facebook as well. So we're everywhere. Check us out and definitely join me on TikTok and on YouTube because there's a lot of videos there. Does the 7002 have writing response? No, it doesn't. So Tiffany, it is the teaching reading minus the writing. You don't have to write for it. Okay. All right. It looks like we are good to go. I really appreciate you all staying with me. We've had over 130 people in here for pretty much the whole time. And I just really appreciate you guys so much. I love what I do. And I hope to help you guys all through your journey, from teacher to administrator to director to superintendent. So I hope you guys have an awesome Saturday. If you have any questions for us, you can email us at info@kathleenjasper.com. We have that offer code coming your way. We will also send you an email with the replay, the study guide, and everything. And I will try to download this for you with the writing on it. For those of you who liked the writing, even though it's chicken scratch and sloppy, I'll download it for you and throw it in that email as well. Some of you were asking for that. I will try. If it gets in there, we'll send it out. And then please, good luck on your exams, and let us know how you're doing. We love to get emails letting us know, or messages letting us know that you guys have been successful. So I really appreciate you. Have an awesome rest of your Saturday. Go relax, have a margarita. I'm in Florida. Maybe you have a hot toddy if you're up in where it's freezing, and have an awesome day.